Well, I think it's important when you talk about education that nothing needs to be fixed with the status quo of American education system, because it's actually operating the way it was designed to operate. When you have a school that's predominantly black and it's in a low income area, what you will see, and what I wrote a paper on, is that most of those students in it, not all, but most of them come from single parent households.
Sure.
Most of them.
Sure.
And so a lot of the times there's no father involved in the student's life.
Right.
And you wouldn't be able to tell me that that's not systematically set up for that to happen.
Welcome to the Good Shepherd of the Shy. Brother Byron here, Brother Willie here. We're going to talk today about education. One of the things we're going to look at is we're going to look at the book of Daniel a little bit, and then we're going to get into exactly education. Now, we're not just talking from some random point. We're both educators. Between us, we probably have over 30 years of teaching.
With you taking the 30?
And probably been in school our whole lives. Never been out of school. So we're not talking from a place where we don't know. We actually do know. We actually have been involved with school and are deeply, deeply involved. So I want to bring your attention. I don't think I'm going to read too much of the scriptures, but I want to bring your attention to Daniel, at the first chapter of Daniel. After he is captured and his friends are captured, it is a grim-looking picture because the king Nebuchadnezzar is taking all the best people to himself. And after he takes the best people to himself, what he does is he says, I'm going to feed them and educate them. And in this chapter, we find the pattern that is being used in our schools today, where the system is actually feeding and educating our children, and to what end are they educating them to? Now, one thing I thought that would be important to understand is our educational system has actually been set up in the Prussian society way. So if those who you don't know, okay, I'm just going to read this right off the internet. It says, well, while most people may not be aware that American model of public schooling is derived from Frederick Revolutionary system of the public education in the 18th century Prussian. Okay, the purpose of that educational system, it says here that the Prussian education system was designed to keep the ruling elite in power while encouraging the masses to be loyal to the government. Now, as we understand that and that setup, we see how our educational system's been set up. So, brother, I want to know what you think. Like what is going on in education? It's all kinds of finger pointing. People are pointing at parents. Parents are wrong. People are pointing at the system. The system's wrong. People are pointing at children. They're wrong. This whole society's wrong. And some communities think that they're better and their education's fine. And then other communities are suffering. And so what I want to know is what are your thoughts about this? Like, whose fault is it? What's going on? Is it wrong? Is it right? What do you think?
Well, I think it's important when you talk about education that nothing needs to be fixed with the status quo of American educational system, because it's actually operating the way it was designed to operate.
All right.
You take the best of the best, and sometimes what happens is the low, right? It's very hard for a low person to start. They say like starting off at third base, a low person to come in, hit all of those bases, and get to the very top, right?
Right. That's
because
right.
if my parents got the means and they got the funds, then I'm gonna send you to the best schools.
Okay.
And from the best schools, you're gonna get the best education.
Right.
From what always fascinates me is I've taught at 3 schools now, and the mindset and the ideology from each school is always different, right? I first taught at a Catholic school. In the Catholic school, you had most of the parents were very involved with the students. They were very hands-on, right?
Because they're paying a lot of money.
Because they're paying a lot of money for that. So the idea was that when the parents are hands-on, you are able to not only get in contact with the parents, but the parents can enforce anything that you are enforcing in the classroom. So if I tell your child or whatever, they need a little bit more discipline, I call the parent right away enforces that.
Right.
And so Then I moved to a public school. And the thing in the public school is the parents are just like, here, take my child in and do whatever with my students.
So I think it matters what kind of public school it is, right? There's some public schools
that are
in
no
wealthier communities, and the parents are overmuch.
Right.
There's so much involved that like well, I'm not gonna name the school, but like some of these schools out here that got a lot of money, and the parents are not going to let anybody fail.
I think you should name those schools.
Just put them out there. Should I put you out there? I'm not putting them out there.
I think the idea is right. Is when you have a school that's predominantly black and it's in a low income area, what you will see, and what I wrote a paper on, is that most of those students in there, not all, but most of them, come from single parent house homes.
Sure.
Most of them.
Sure.
And so a lot of the times there's no father involved in the student's life.
Right.
And you wouldn't be able to tell me that that's not systematically set up for that to happen. And so they go to these public schools, and what happens is those low income students now have to fight and climb to get to the top, right? They don't even understand. I had a conversation with many of my students. They don't even understand that they're getting a low education.
Right.
They don't even understand that they're getting a rudimentary education.
So the thing that's what you're saying is that is on purpose.
That is very definitely.
Like, we want to keep the poor. We want to keep the rich. So basically, if you got money, you're gonna keep money, or you're gonna make more money. And if you're poor, you're gonna stay poor. But what about the student who goes to a low income school, then comes out and becomes a basketball player, football player, actor, some sort of whatever, and they make it out? Like, what about them?
I think it's systematically from the administrators on down, right?
Okay,
I'm sure
now we're starting to talk about
I'm sure you've seen this. Is that when I first got into the Catholic school, and even at the Catholic school, I was had a thing with my students where a lot of them were doing poorly. They wouldn't study. The studying habits wasn't good, and I ended up failing a bunch of them.
Okay.
And basically, the principal pulled me into the office and said, "Listen,
we don't fail.
You can't fail them all. You need to pass these students."
Right.
And that's when I understood, like, oh, this is a business.
Right.
Like, this is not how I pictured it being. But the administrators set it up so that what's required, what's rigorous from these students at a low income school is what's not even nothing to these schools at these high end schools. Like, it's nothing, right? So what's required at these low income public schools is that just pass them along. And the students don't know, the parents don't know that your child is getting a rudimentary education.
So even with some of the online schooling stuff, it's the same thing.
No doubt.
They're just pushing people through the system because they want to maintain the cogs in the wheel just keep rolling along.
And I want to go back to your thing about the basketball. And so what happens is that what we see is that the children, it's from the high up, from administration on down. The ideology is that the way you make it out of this is that you become a basketball player, some type of hairdresser, or some type of entertainer. That's pushed onto the African Americans nonstop.
Right.
Nonstop. But if you go to these high income schools, what you'll find is that doctors, lawyers, engineers, and all of them want to be that. And so it what's strange is, and once again, I was having a conversation with a couple colleagues about this, is that what's strange is, if you take these students, these African American students that's from this low income area, and change their ideology from a young child, and say, like, look, listen, we want you to be doctors, engineers, and lawyers. That's what builds a community. Right. Basketball players and entertainers don't build a community. Right. We need you to do X, Y, and Z. You'll start to see the shift. But like you said, it's a farm.
It's a setup.
It's all a setup. So I push this on them that this is what you're going to be. Now we know
it's what you do.
This is exactly, and we know, right, that it's actually harder to be in an NBA or a football NFL than it is to be a doctor or a lawyer. Statistically, it's just almost impossible, right?
Right.
But here's the thing: if I get 3 million black people or 3 million African American students in these schools to think that all 3 million of you are going to be some type of entertainer or basketball player, we once we rise up the crop and we're going to take the best of the best, right? But by the time you get to college, you suddenly find out, as I did, that hey, all 3 million of us can't go to the NBA. That's not happening.
That's right. And what you find out also is, what's interesting, is that not only do they not get out, but a lot of them don't graduate.
Exactly, because they're not being set up to graduate. If I'm a teacher, and once again, I don't want to blame the teachers, right? Because the teachers are just getting something pushed onto them.
Well, the teachers are a part of the system too. They don't even they're eating and drinking this vile stuff that's been set out.
Yes.
Like as a teacher, you're actually programmed and taught to think like the system.
Yes, exactly.
Every single teacher is successful the same way. We all went to school, we did good at school, and then after that, you go get more school. You get your master's degree, and maybe you get another master's degree, and then you start thinking about your doctorate degree. But that's all one system, and then we push that same system on the students.
Right.
We're not talking to students about what you don't often find teachers talking to students about is what's the best way to educate yourself, or what's the best way to take yourself deeper, and think to independent business owners, or create some kind of system that you can have.
Right. I think the number one thing is that with teachers, to me, like I don't put a lot of blame on the teachers because to me the teachers are doing what's reciprocated at the top end.
Right.
So the teachers are taking from what they're seeing and saying this is the way you have to do it. And so if a teacher, going back to the college point, if a teacher is just pushing you through, well, you don't even have the discipline or the study skills that's necessary when you get to college to make it. And that's why we see so many people drop out.
Right.
And that's why it's so many, remember you talked to me about this. That's why there's so many community colleges next to big universities.
Right.
This is why you get students to drop out, because once they get there, they like, oh, wait a minute. Now I was just used to doing this and my teacher just passed me along. But it's a process that happens.
Stay in the system, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so what about the parents? What's on the parents? What do you think? Like, I feel like in my educational experience, I feel like our parents are misinformed, especially lower income parents. They just they look to the teachers and say, you're the expert, you do your thing. And they step back and they just respectfully allow you to do whatever you want to their child. And they say, listen to the teacher. Where's the onus of the parents? What are they supposed to be doing?
The thing what happens every aspect of the spiritual world, I think, affects this real world.
Okay.
So when you start to talk about a household, a family household, when we talk about a household from Christians' point of view, there needs to be a husband, a wife, and then the children. And God, of course, needs to be in that relationship. Sure. So, and in every aspect, there needs to be a man somehow, a woman, and the children. It should flow in that order with God at the top.
Sure.
What we have in this generation is that the household is being led by a bunch of women. And I got a lot of respect for the women who the father might have just left out, and now you have to do what you have to do. But
being strong women.
I got nothing but respect for those women. But what we're seeing is that children somehow now in this day and age are running the house. And really,
something's being missed.
Yes. And really what's happening in those households is that they don't have fathers.
Right. Because somebody's at work.
Yes.
Mom's at work all day, comes home tired.
And so the parents,
what are you going to do?
I've had many instances where, and to a degree I understand, right? But it's definitely not how I was, right? My dad or my father, when I was young, anything the teacher said, my dad was on that teacher's side. I was afraid for a teacher to call my dad. Because my dad, he didn't play that back and forth listening to me about what's going on. But these parents, somehow, it's like it's shifted. A teacher almost have to defend now what the child is saying. Like a child could go home, a student go home and say, well, he said this and this and this. And the parent right away, for some reason, in this day and age, is going to believe that student. Mm-hmm. And so if you at work, you work in a 9 to 5, you work 10 hours, you automatically believe the student.
Right.
And I think that's taken away from...
It's detrimental.
Yes. I think that's leading to why they're so misinformed.
Right. Detrimental to the community, right?
Exactly.
The communication, the relationships that should be there to actually build a good educational system.
Right.
So one of the things I'd like to maybe touch on that I think... There's many different talk shows that have gone on and people talking. They're talking about what we're talking about. I think the one area where they don't talk about is that this is a social experiment.
Definitely.
It's not uncalculated. It's very calculated. And basically what they're doing, or what people are doing in power, is they're putting things out there just to see what they can do to society. Mm-hmm. Like one of the things we have talked about quite a bit is the LGBTQ plus community. And how does that get so much power inside of an educational system, or the very liberal mindset of many educators? How does that just get pushed in society so strongly that they believe it without question? It's a social experiment.
Well, I think once again, it's you have teachers who come from a good place with a good heart.
Absolutely.
And what happens is, if you the one of the wisest things you can ever hear is that if you don't stand for truth, you'll fall for anything.
That's right.
And if you don't have a basis of what's true, the problem with it is that you start to, everything just becomes true. If I believe in anything and I'll fall for anything, well, right. 1 second you believe a man can be a girl can see, and then I start to inadvertently I start to teach that way. Right. Well, listen, little Jimmy, you can be Sarah if you just do X, Y, and Z.
And then it starts spawning into, you can be an animal, you can be all these different things. But I'm saying that those social experiments are there on purpose.
Definitely.
So that eventually someone in power can take advantage of the children of this generation.
Definitely.
With all the media, with all the online schooling, with the COVID experiment, all those different things have shaped society in such a way, this experiment, that society they're not thinking anymore.
And I don't think no one eats up this celebrity culture, this fashion, this entertainment like African American culture. They eat it up to death. No other culture eats it up as fast.
So we find this social experiment going on not only in the Black communities, but feels like it's more prevalent there, but the Latino communities, even the majority white communities who think that they're more elite, mm-hmm. because they've been programmed to believe that they're more elite.
It's all just a divide and conquer tactic.
Absolutely.
You put the blacks with the blacks, have them thinking that the whites is the problem. Put the Hispanics with the Hispanics, have them thinking whoever's the problem. Mm-hmm. The whites make them think that they're somehow better than everybody else. And what you get is exactly what the system is after, divide and conquer. In order for the system to operate the way it operates, you have to have social classes, and someone has to be at the bottom, someone has to be in the middle, and someone has to be at the top.
So here you have it, the education of America. So we here at the Good Shepherds of Shai want to bring this information to you. We want to make you aware of it, because our goal is always that we would unify the people of God, that we would find you out there. If you're interested in coming out to service, please feel free to come out to service. I'm sure you'll see where we meet at somewhere online or something, at the bottom of the screen somewhere, and wherever you see it, we'd love to have you out. Our whole goal is to bring us together, our people. So thank you.